Hi everyone. I'm here, but I need a few minutes to get myself together. I need to get myself a glass of water and also to get my jacket off. And hi Sheree. Sorry to be so messed up, but I'll be right back. Okay, life's little joys. Oh my God. I banged my head a bit, but fortunately I was right in front of a snowdrift, and so I only half fell, but I banged my head on the dumpster. So if I'm talking like a cuckoo clock today, that's the reason. I need to I need to send my wife a text telling her I'm okay. Okay. Headset. And I have a headset here somewhere. Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. Oh my gosh. Sheree, that's crazy. That's that's wild. Well, we all have our different crosses to bear. Fortunately, our school, while we are going to go back to school to the building tomorrow, it's going to be a 2 hour late start, so we can do it at our leisure. Okay. Um, so Yeah, I don't think I'm hurt. I have a little bit of a bump on my back of my head, but I'm all right. Okay, so let me take a sip of this. Okay, so we're here, and we're going to be working with Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions. Um, okay, edited by Mary Stein and Thomas Arst, my friends. Okay, and by the way, I'm reading Mary Stein's book in his collected works on uh, psychology and Christianity. It's quite interesting book, and I haven't gotten too far into it yet. I'm reading the by Audible. Okay, so we're in a long essay that we've been working with called "The Burning Urgency of Psychodynamic Discoveries in the Red Book for Psychiatry and Psychotherapy: A Key for Healing Residents of Soul, Love, and Life." And in this is volume 4 of this series entitled The Red Book for Our Time. And I am on page 46 of volume 4. Um, yeah, we're all suffering, but I'm glad you're here. So because you're here, I'm going to do my best to do a decent session here. So we're up to the sacrificial murder, and I'm just going to read it to you first, and then we'll talk about it. The sacrificial murder. There follows a vision of horror. Let's get this a little bit, get my head a little higher in the screen. Okay. Um, there follows a vision of horror. A small girl lies on the ground, brutally murdered. At her side, a veiled figure introduces herself as the soul of the child. She confronts Jung to force to sorry. She confronts Jung to fully see this horror, not just to know about it. She pushes him to eat a piece of the liver, a taboo yet sacred act, sharing and participating in the guilt to allow for atonement. After Jung eats of the liver, feeling both disgust and grief, the figure unveils herself as his soul. Jung reflects on how inflated human aspiration is sacrificed through the murdering of the small girl. The soul showed Jung the consequences of one-sidedness, grandiose aspirations of the ego, which kill inner potential as symbolized by the child. By eating of the sacrificial flesh, man recognizes God as well as evil. Through this act, Jung destroys the image of the purely good. Jung destroys the image of the purely good God and his previous identification with the archetypes, accepting his participation in the murder. This brings salvation of the soul. By unveiling her face and revealing that she is also Jung's own soul, she opens a deeper relationship with the I, which needs to renounce appropriation of unconscious dynamics. But man must recognize his complicity in the act of evil. Man cannot accomplish this act solely by himself, but is assisted by evil, which does it instead of man. Okay. Um, well, the last week has seen plenty of evil in our country. Um, and I'm sure, um, I'm sure all of you can concur. And we do have a lot of Americans and others um, around the world coming out and protesting what ICE is doing in our streets. I know for my part, I have a whistle on my lanyard for school that I'm wearing. And I do think it's quite possible that we might get a raid in my school because my school has a separate entrance um, to it, which is uh, the county welcome center for refugees. And it turns out that the back door of that place uh, is a door right across the hall from my door in the school. So good luck to us all. But fortunately, apparently, um, our president has now told ICE to stay away from demonstrations, and I hope that's true and happens. Okay, whew. So let me have another sip of water here. So, anyway, okay. So I don't see anyone taking up the sacrificial murder. So I will continue with the next segment because this is a very long article. So the name of the next segment is called Sacrifice, Gate to the Birthplace of Psyche. Sacrifices are a part of life. It is helpful to understand their dynamics. Mourning and separation belong to conditions of living a complete life. Sacrifices form constructive components in the process of evolution. Instead of just being endured, if embraced and lived out through the inner work of consciousness, sacrifices can yield gradual detachment of projections. For example, painful breakups involve deeper and clearer recognition of limits of the personality and the potentials in becoming a whole. Through this process, inflated orientations dissolve. In each sacrifice, a new step of consciousness is possible. The I progressively renounces possessiveness, power, and reductive devaluation of the unconscious. Without sacrifices, unconscious attachments and limitations form an envelopment of undifferentiation. The fully experienced sacrifice brings resonance between different parts of the psyche. Regression of the libido is forced toward the unconscious, stimulating renewal through union of the inner opposites. Relatedness with life can unfold in an integrative, mutually evolving form with others, since primordial powers are redeemed and added to one's soul. Sacrifices animate new energies for life. The restoration of our human life signifies an act of the below. This is a great and dark mystery. So let's just talk about a couple of sacrifices that have been going on. Um, Up in Minneapolis, we had Miss Good who um, wished the her executioner that she wasn't mad at him and she was just going on with her day, and within 5 seconds he had shot her dead. Um, and of course, she didn't know she was going to be dead 5 seconds later, but she was. And that was one blood sacrifice. And one of the things we learn in the Red Book is the importance of blood to wake human beings up to their unconscious and to what is proper to be done. And so then we had uh, the gentleman, Alex Preedy, I believe his name is, who was also killed by ICE in Minnesota. Uh, we should all consider them as undesired sacrifices. No, none of us wanted them to die, but they are probably the sacrifices that are necessary to wake Americans up, and especially Americans who support our president and the evil that he is performing at the moment. And I'll say it explicitly, what he's doing with ICE right now is evil. And we have to start being able to recognize evil in our presence because it isn't somewhere else. It's here and it's with us. And all of us perform it from time to time. And so we need to uh, find atonement. People get atonement by going to confession. Uh, they um, they go to psychotherapy, where also confession is important, as Murray Stein says in his book. Confession to somebody is a big step toward moving on, so that uh, you're not stuck in a stuck state. And very often there's something going on unconsciously, and what you have to do is examine your own life and see if there's anything that you need to confess. I have plenty in my own life, good and bad. I mean, even Jimmy Carter said, I have sinned in my heart, or something like that, uh, about, I guess he was looking at women or something. But at least he recognized it. Now, where we failed, and I think all religions have failed, is we keep saying that evil is out there, it's not us. Well, it is us. And, um, we've all participated in a society that's allowed um, this situation to build up and build up and build up. And it's my assessment that um, the individuals that are working for ICE are actually some of the militia members that we've been worried about for the last 4 or 5 decades. Apparently, we have about, or had about 2,500 um, organized militias who go out in the war and grouse about women or government or what have you, and practice their pistol skills. And I don't know what else they do out there. It used to be the Ku Klux Klan, but now we have the Ku Klux Klan in the form of ICE uniforms. And it's just very sad. And the sooner we get control of that, the better off we'll all be. Uh, and as Cherie says, the system is drinking its own Kool-Aid. Well, maybe less and less. There certainly have been a lot of demonstrations recently, and um, we're trying to wake up to what we've done. What we have to recognize is our own part in it for psychic health. So when you go out um, on a demonstration, please be sure to um, meditate on how you too are a part of this problem and have been. And I mean, over the last half century, all of us have been part of it. We try to put it out of our minds and we just let it build up and get worse and worse. And, the fact is, it's not a good thing to be throwing all these people out of the United States because, uh, with the exception of if there are people who are drug runners or felons, um, fine. I think we ought to uh, we ought to throw them in jail and then send them out of the United States after they've served their term. Um, I don't wish have any goodwill for them, but um, the truth is, this country, the United States, needs 1.5 million new citizens a year in order to keep up with the needs of our growth. And if we don't have those people, um, then we get stuck. And I think we're pretty stuck right now. And people, uh, good people can't find jobs. My next door neighbor can't find a job. And he's a very capable middle-aged college graduate, and he's been looking. He's now teaching adjunct to make ends meet, and um, but and I've urged him to sign up to do substituting at school because uh, he can earn enough money to keep his lifestyle going without going bankrupt while he actually looks for another job. And and Sharice says Alex Preety also had a confrontation a week before he was murdered. I'm sure, and all of us have, but we have to make it clear that what's happening um, in our society um, isn't good enough. My symbol for that is I bought 16 whistles and I uh, hung one on my lanyard at school where I have my badge as a teacher, and so I have a whistle there. I was just now when I fell down at the uh, dumpster. I was wishing I had it with me, and I didn't have it with me. Um, so I'm gonna have to get some more whistles, and I think I got 16 for $8 or something like that on Amazon. So it's worth getting and making sure others, the 16 that I originally bought, all got taken by other people. And so there's obviously a demand for whistles. A lot of people don't know where to get them, but uh, and Richard says it was like a mafia hit. Yeah, it was like a mafia hit. It seemed like that. And I don't know, it could be that, as Richard said, he had a confrontation a week before, and some people on ICE were looking for him to kill him. That's a possibility. I don't know. Um, I hope that's not true, and I hope we're having ICE agents come in from other states so that you don't have people with local grudges who who are trying to get to use their power to get even on other grudges. Um, and yeah, okay. So anyway, uh, let us go on. So anyway, Jung in the Red Book, as you know, and I've said a number of times, 8 million men and women died in World War I, which is when Jung discovered the collective unconscious, and they were all sacrificial. Anybody who's lost in war is a sacrifice, and it's their blood that causes us to change ever so slowly. And I'm trying to get a handle on the collective unconscious, have been doing for the last 30 years. And, uh, this is one essence of it. We're seeing what the collective unconscious of the country feels about the behavior of these ICE people. And as I said, I think they have been hiring people straight out of the militias. And I think we ought to be going back and evaluating who they are, who these people are. So anyway, um, like most of us, I think I'm pretty incensed by what's happened in our streets. And Debbie and I have been going out to demonstrations. We actually went out yesterday looking for our local demonstration, and what we found was that the sidewalks were so full of snow that there was nowhere people could go and safely demonstrate. So nobody was out. But we were out. We were out with our sign, and we probably will be again. Um, okay, so the next segment of this is called Divine Folly. After Jung had to suffer the horror of the murdered child, he had three longer visions which forced him further into acceptance of psychodynamic truths. His soul challenges him to admit his madness and welcome it in a friendly manner, to give life to it. A fat psychiatrist diagnosed him with religious paranoia. Madness is a big part of our life. Life is full of madness. Madness is not to be despised and not to be feared, but instead, you should give it life. Acceptance of madness is a much deeper challenge than finding one's own path or bearing the weakest or other within. Madness means encountering horror, sadness, and chaos. As psychiatrists, we should become conscious and take care of our own innermost madness, because remaining unconscious is to project onto patients with destructive consequences. So here, um, Dr. Hyder is giving us a prescription for her own colleagues in the psychiatric space. And obviously it applies to all of us as well. As laymen, we're laymen. And so um, we have to be conscious of our own madness and what makes us crazy and what doesn't. Um, and Cherie says, today's wars are no longer just war and clashes between armies and societies, and is what different systems of meaning. It's all, it's and it's also a psychological death. Uh, you become neutral when you let yourself be neutralized. Yeah. And so, um, all of us are neutralized to a certain extent, but that doesn't mean that we don't stand up for our fellow citizens if the evil comes near us. I mean, we can't all jump in a car and go to Minnesota, but we can be vigilant and prepared to jump in a car and go over to the nearby shopping mall if appropriate. Okay, the next title is Madness. Jung's madness initiation makes him realize that the grace of God is a state of mind he relies upon and gives himself to life. But behind this thin veneer of a quiet space, he discovers chaos, multiplicity ad infinitum, filled with figures, including the dead of human history, the not denied, the potential, the excluded, living out one's animal nature, introversion to encounter the dead, and accepting and respecting whatever unfolds, taking care of the dead with love and reverence. Jung uncovered the birthplace of psyche and the access to the implied within the space of mystery, from whence psychic life emerges. This profoundly moving experience helped Jung to welcome his soul as his friend, to accept her diving as messenger into the depths. His broadened acceptance deepened their relationship. He receives and acknowledges everything that she brings up: fire, treason, war, revolution, epidemic, bestial savagery, hunger, fear, treasures, temples, images of God, wisdom. Through and perhaps because of all these challenges, the soul brings up a very special level of being, opening up to vulnerability, the essential state to differentiate the feeling capacity, crucial if one is to evolve further in consciousness. Okay, so um, at one point he asked, his soul would ask Jung if he wants her to dive down and see what she finds, and Jung says yes, and what she brings up is war, um, and and magic, and a few other things. It's more complicated than that, but it's a realization that war is archetypal. Now, it wasn't until I read Hillman a couple of weeks back in his book, A Terrible Love of War, that I really had to concede that war is archetypal and we're not going to escape it. And but I do remember when I was training as a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, one of the things that we taught, probably the only thing explicitly that I remember from that 6 months of training, was Clausewitz's position um, that war is uh, diplomacy by other means or other methods. So uh, it, it's it becomes a form of diplomacy. So, um, you know, at at one level, I can't criticize the president for going and grabbing Maduro, um, who was thumbing his nose at us for um, years and years and years. Um, But at the same time, now he's left Venezuela without any clear direction. And, he says, Marco Rubio is in control, is, you know, guiding Venezuela. And, that you obviously can't take 30 million people and control what they do from ships out at sea. Any U.S. Marine will tell you that you have to have boots on the ground in order to get things to happen the way you want them to happen. So, the other shoe is going to have to drop here. Um, so anyway, yes, I do agree with you, Sherry, that it's it, we call it war, and of course that's the big topic that everybody can point to. But the reality is that we have many wars or many disputes on almost everything we do in life. And even your negotiations with your spouse or your business colleague or whoever it is that's in your life, those discussions often are a kind of negotiation. And you have to um, keep war as a last resort. It seems to me. I mean, in 40 years of doing business, I only um, pulled out a threat of war once on a dear colleague of mine, a colleague who saved my career at one point. And he was refusing to do something that I thought, while I didn't agree with it, I knew it was reasonable. And he said he wouldn't do it. And I said, well, if you don't do it by 6 p.m. today, then you're fired. And he knew that I was serious. And that's the only time that I ever did it. We're still dear friends. He's now 87 years old. And um, I visited him about 2 weeks ago, but we've worked together since, oh my God, since 1994, I think. Um, Maybe earlier than that. Yeah, since 1992 or one. So it's a long while now that we've worked together. And he would save my bacon every week because he worked as my finance guy, and he was very, very good at it. And when I couldn't afford to pay my bills as a business, um, he was the one that could sweet talk the creditors into waiting a little bit longer for payment. So he was essential to my business. But one occasion um, we clashed, and I had to pull out the threat of war. Um, but it wasn't personal. It was because we had to get something done, and it was essential that we do it at that moment. Um, so, so she says, I've shed many tears. Me too, says Richard, especially with Renee Good. Yes, absolutely. How horrible that was. Uh, and Richard talks about, I'm sure you've all seen the guy from Germany video, A Letter to America. I don't think I have seen that, Richard. And we're now at odds with NATO because of the big doofus. Depressing, says Kathy. Yeah. And I can't imagine this. I mean, Vladimir Putin must have something incredible on Donald Trump in order for him to sell out the country the way he has, because my whole career in the Marine Corps was in the reserve was heavily weighted toward defending NATO, and the Marine Corps um, has pre-positioned war reserve in Europe, in a NATO country, where we can just move the men in the Second Marine Division to Europe without worrying about the equipment, because we have a full division worth of equipment that we keep. We maintain it, and we, change the oil in the trucks and all the artillery pieces, etc. regularly. We keep it ready to go, and we've only used those war reserves once, and that was in Gulf War One, when we used the preposition war reserve in Diego Garcia to um, to equip the Marines that were going into Iraq on Gulf War One. Um, and Something about any woman in trouble, it just makes any man real. And yeah, I've been known to be a knight on a white horse every so often during my career as the leader of my company. I saved um, several women when they were in trouble, and by that I mean financially. But um, you know, it when there's that kind of a risk, you have to swing in and help. Okay, so the next thing in this essay is called the discarded golden crown. In the chapter titled The Magician, toward the end of Liber Secundus, Jung experiences himself hanging in the tree of life. A little white bird, previously the serpent, gives Jung a meaningful gift, which it found on the street in the immeasurable space of heaven, a discarded crown of gold with the inner engraving, "Love never ends." The bird says that there is a difference between heaven and hell, yet as little happens in heaven as in hell, the in-between seems to be the creative space where things happen. Jung is hanging in the very liminal space of creation. Jung Jung would like to understand the mystery of the hanging and the crown. Salome tells him that he must remain hanging until he can help himself, until the reconciliation of the opposites takes place, mentioned cynically by the scornful Satan. So it seems that even Jung's precious theories, established through therapeutic experiences, are contested by a content of the psyche and must be borne out by his own empirical experience. In the following dense dynamics of the vision, there unfolds an interesting differentiation between love and life. Interestingly, here Jung is not hanging in the tree of knowledge. However, however much it may pertain to knowledge of the soul, his process brings him to deeper roots, the necessity to undergo physical and emotional vulnerability from the very cradle of life. The capacity of feeling serves as the opening function to bridge the different aspects in an individual and to bring one to awareness, knowledge, and consciousness between opposites. Quote, and so life needs love until it was developed, and then it will cut loose from it. Love seeks to have and to hold, but life wants more. The beginning of all things is love, but the being of things is life. This distinction is terrible. Love seems to the prime Love seems the prime mover to create life, but life nevertheless stands above love. That's an interesting quote. Okay, this goes on. So I'm still in this section, which is entitled "The Discarded Golden Crown." It goes on for another page and a half. So I'll keep reading. Um, um, the serpent tells Jung a fairy tale to understand the riddle of the crown. The story is about the need to sacrifice the power of knowledge and to let everything grow and sprout out of itself, letting life unfold out of insight and not will. Jung thus subjects himself to the son of the frogs, an archetypal figure in this fairy tale that represents a divine figure above the opposites. Jung gives him the crown, symbolizing totality, so that the son can unite with his separate and new life can occur. The motivating underlying energies of these dynamics are love and reason. Okay, so this is about the will and if you think that you can will everything, well, you can't. that's that's not possible. But we still have people selling that in the universities that you can will something and it will be. No, it won't. Hi, Deborah. Nice to see you today. Um, Going on. No man binds above and below together. This insight reflects profound humility and has deep meaning in the therapeutic process. The eye should not be identified with the healing power. Instead, it opens up in an attitude of human loving care toward the bridging capacities within the unconscious. With this gesture, Jung accepts once more in the series of his visions the separation from an archetype and sacrifices the presumptive power of the ego, reflecting a serpentine cyclic unfolding through the Red Book. The beginning of all things is love, but the being of things is life. This distinction could be seen as a Copernican turn for that common attitude in our time, idealizing, romanticizing, and placing love on a pedestal. Reified love becomes paralyzed as an absolute virtue. A more basic earthly love initiates relatedness with and within life. Okay, so reified love. So you can swear you love all you want, but it's earthy love that comes naturally, that um, provides relatedness. In the therapeutic process, the hanging represents holding and withstanding in order to accept and integrate shadow aspects until a new possibility presents itself. During this phase, a loving and caring approach is essential to, to develop enduring and accepting capacities of the I, distinct from even more important archetypal upheavals from within. These vibrancies enable the I to let go of the previous invested identification with the numinous archetype. Psychodynamically, this means entering a depressive phase for the I. The previous numinous energy is transformed through a integration into conscious life. While this is happening, the I feels once again empty and lonely. However, mysteriously, it is simultaneously strengthened through the process. I came to myself, a giddy and pitiful figure, my I. This horrifies me. Liber Secundus ends with these words, quote, the touchstone is being alone with oneself. This is the way, unquote. The peeling off process of the initiation into relationship with his psyche brought him face to face with this I, realizing that he is even different from this presumed identity, being submerged deeply into the paradoxical realm of the self, where a new I sprouts as a witness, more conscious and intensely connected with the upcoming uh, and intensely connected with the upcoming, the emerging. Okay, so these energies come forth, um, and you have to see what your connection with it is. Okay, my wife has sent me a text message, so she's asking about my fall earlier. Uh, and she just asked me if I'm okay. I said, yeah, I'm fine. A little bit of a headache, but that'll pass. Let's see. So Deborah says, I met a very intelligent young woman recently and put her onto Jung. She has autism, but has managed to get a higher degree in genetics at a top university. Um, Cherie says, think about everyone who is being affected here in the United States and all the families who are struggling through this winter weather and children being traumatized. Boy, amen. And Deborah says, I told her about the shadow and how people aren't very integrated, won't cope with too much honesty. She has social issues. And Cherie, even at the border in Texas, um, and then Deborah, we're having heat waves fires and floods in Australia struggled through heat to 117 degrees a few days ago. Whew, that's hot. I've experienced temperatures approaching that in the Middle East, and you don't want to be in it for more than 10 seconds, actually. Uh, and it's heat that can just knock you over. And Sheree says, I saw that. How is Julian Assange doing in Australia? Good question. Energy is very intense. The sun is emitting solar flares too. Yeah, lots of intensity around. Okay, where are we here? Okay, 11:05. I'm gonna just take a drink because this next section is about 3 pages and it's going to be intense. Deborah says my thermostat doesn't work on my body anymore. I can't sweat. It's very challenging. Deborah, make sure that you get lots of liquids because in heat like that, you are sweating, but it's evaporating so fast that that you don't think you're sweating. That happened to me a number of times, including when I was down on our border in Tucson, Arizona, and your skin feels strangely dry and you can't figure out why aren't you sweating? And the fact is you are sweating, but it's evaporating so fast that you don't know it. And that evaporation is what keeps you going because that's a cooling function. But if you're not consciously sweating, that's trouble. So be very, very careful. Deborah says, I'm going to eat more ginger to try and get it working. Now I know what the problem is. Thanks, but I have a condition. It's autoimmune. Okay, well, you may have that, but what I said is still true about your body. Uh, and I'm going to have to take about a 10-second break while I put my jacket on because I'm a little chilly in this apartment. I'll be right back. I think while I'm off, I'm going to go get a glass of water too. I'll be back. So let's see. So Deborah says I was reading about bedding and how it's very important to pile on wool on the lower part of the bed for you guys who are suffering from cold. Make an envelope. Uh, and yeah. So Deborah says, I'm not up with Assange. I know he is quietly living by the sea in the south coast of New South Wales. Uh, okay, all right. While you talk about uh, Aborigines, I will go on with this reading. Um, all right, so scrutinies, taming the eye. Now, keep in mind that the I in this case is the I in Jung's imagination. It's not Jung himself, but it's the figure in his imagination that stands for himself uh, in the discussions. So, taming the I. What am I? What is my I? Jung has an intense, bored, and angry, scolding confrontation with his I. He mirrors to the I its characteristics following his separation with the archetype of the sun and the encounter with his loneliness and pain. You are not my soul, you are my bare, empty nothing. I, this this dis- this disagreeable being. Stripped of the numinous energy, he enters in a state of a direct confrontation with his I. Nothing else is left. He finds himself in the position of an inner witness, a paradoxical linkage of I and self in a new level of consciousness, where new insights appear on the confrontational in the confrontational space. He sees this his I from the outside. From this tension, and in his suffering, he admonishes his I. Quote, yes, you are laughably sensitive, self-righteous, unruly, mistrustful, pessimistic, cowardly, dishonest with yourself, venomous, vengeful. One can hardly speak about your childish pride, your craving for power, your desire for esteem, your laughable ambition, your thirst for fame without feeling sick. Unquote. In these lines, experiences and thoughts are expressed that we all feel at times or think with regard to somebody else. It is always a crucial phase in therapy when the I has to be educated, challenged, and even lashed. It is never easy to develop a way of training this autonomous being within our psyche to find resonance with it and develop a rapport beyond power. No, Kathy, I'm sorry you're freezing. I'm freezing too. That's why I have my quilted coat on. Um, and so Deborah had been recommending a film entitled 10C. Yeah, excuse me, about Aborigines. So, well, uh, Ri- Kathy says, Richard, I have a friend who lives in the Bronx and who is retired homicide detective. He was walking to the store the other day when he noticed a forearm sticking up out of a snowbank. Uh, he pulled out a woman who's 70 years old. A man who was driving a truck saw them and helped, and they put her in his truck. Watched it by myself and said thank you. Uh, Goodness gracious. Yeah, I was almost like that right before we started this session because I had fallen uh, in front of our dumpster, and notwithstanding the fact that the community I live in has done a pretty good job with the sidewalks and um, the parking lots, etc. They haven't cleaned around the dumpster, and that's really going to be a problem. I'm going to have to take up with them. Okay, when the therapeutic process reaches this point and the subject can endure the confrontation, it is prognostically a good sign. There is a new I, a more relationally embedded in resonance with inner and outer life. With the development, it is able to confront and be confronted. The strength of the I is needed in order to go into the healing process and represents an important threshold, without which there is no meaningful further differentiation of the psyche. Harmful shadow aspects cannot be confronted without a solid enough I. Without taming the I, healing transformation is blocked. Quote, you want to complain about others, and that one has done an injustice to you, not understood you, misinterpreted you, hurt your feelings, ignored you, not recognized you, falsely accused you, and what else? Do you see your vanity in this, your eternally ridiculous vanity? Unquote. The victim role has become such a plague in the spirit of our times. Having psychological equipment to understand, challenge, and treat this specific contamination is urgently needed and of pragmatic importance. Our psyche has an inborn tendency through evolution to trigger attention and care. But inflated, this turns into hindering dynamics for the individual and the collective. This perversion carries the seeds for lies, fake tendencies, and pathological inner and outer systems. Holding yet holding yet to account, this state of mind in therapy is a tightrope and needs the refinement of feeling and wisdom dimensions within the therapist. The spirit of our times unconsciously but constantly feeds these addictive loops. Quote, you are my I, which I must carry around with me to the grave. What you call love oozes with self interest and desirous of, quote, if I tame you, beast, I give others the opportunity to tame their beasts. The taming begins with you, my eye, unquote. After Jung had spoken thus reproachfully to his eye, he noticed that he began to be able to bear being alone with himself, becoming able to express the inner pressure and negative emotions is of cardinal importance in the therapeutic process. The capacity to withstand the pain of loneliness is essential in the process of scrutinies. Learning that the I is different from the soul and the archetypes, and that an excess of emotions belongs and is endemic in these layers of the psyche, trying to possess the I, allows the process of consciousness to tolerate and circumscribe their outlandish nature and entitled demands, thereby entering into the next level. Concurrently, the shape and characteristic changes of inner figures changes within components of the I, the development of connecting capacities of these aspects of the psyche all evolve in the course of scrutinies. Sorry, I just zoned out for a minute. I apologize for that. Okay, so yes, Kathy, I agree. I should wear a whistle. I have one for school, but I'm going to have to get some more so I can carry them around. Yeah, Deborah says the collective is becoming stronger in this adversity. I agree. It only takes one. The three boys trying to save their dog had all drowned broke my heart. It was on a frozen pond, very dangerous, and those parents' grief. And I've fallen through the ice on a pond near my house. Fortunately, um, I went in pretty hard. This was, oh, geez, about at least more than a decade ago, maybe 20 years ago. But it was only about knee deep. But by the time I uh, waded to the shore and got myself up, it was all I could do to walk the maybe 200 yards home. And I immediately got into a hot bath, which saved me. But boy, I could have easily gone away that time. Um, and so uh, then we have the Melania movie equals ego inflation. Oh yeah, and uh, somebody said if I saw the Melania movie on an airplane, I'd still leave. Kathy, I'm just curious, what part of the U.S. are you in? You may have mentioned it before. And Kathy says, Richard, I'm in Colorado. And Cherie says, uh, who who would watch Melania's movie? Oh no, did one all the Epstein files now released with redactions? Prince Philip, I am for all the victims, even the young lady who was her name Jeffries in Get Plastic Whistle, My Friend, so that they can be used when it's cold. And Richard says, a huge iris comes down on me often. That sounds insane, I know. Um, and Deborah's referring to ego inflation, I think, on the Melania movie. Cherie, Australia, the one that committed suicide out and brought out about Prince Philip. Um, yeah, that was Miss Jouffre, I believe. Um, Deborah says we have to remember we're only on the Earth temporarily. More new photos. Ice is incredibly dangerous. Yeah, Kathy, we're following about three different conversations here, so I'm sorry if it sounds, yeah, Virginia Giuffre, that's her name, or Gouffre. Um, yeah, it's hard to know about Prince Andrew. I don't know whether he's because last night he was referred to as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, um, and he's definitely given the crown a bad name. Uh, and Boy, the crown is a difficult affair, I would say. We've now watched five seasons worth of the program, The Crown. I guess that's 50 shows in about a month, and oh my God, it's hard. One has to remember that between all these horrible incidents, there were like 3 years or 5 years of peaceful living because when you cram them all together that way by trying to look at all the seasons in one go, it seems like it's just a horror show, and it is a horror show, but it's not every day a horror show. uh, and Kathy says, don't believe everything you watch on Netflix. Yeah. uh, and Sheree refers to Edward Said's book, The Belly of the Beast. Edward Said was an interesting fellow because he was a fundamentalist um, Muslim in Egypt, I believe. Yeah, Richard says there were also four policemen that committed suicide in the months following the January 6th insurrection. They were all there that day. Yeah. Uh, okay. All right. So let me see what else I can do. Uh, I sort of lost it at the end there. All right, let me do the next section, which is not too bad. The need of the soul. The most important psychodynamic discovery in the Red Book is, in my view, experience in the unfolding visions of the scrutinies, especially when Jung's soul wants to steal human love. Her craving enrages him because the soul is longing for the warm human love, blood, warm red blood, the holy source of life, the unification of everything separated and longed for. Jung wants to protect human love in the face of the gods and their power because they exercise neither limits nor mercy, having neither God nor soul presiding over them as their judges. Jung insists that human love stay with humans, In the unfolding dialogue with his soul, he demands that she participate with humanity on behalf of humility and for the sake of love to honor humankind. With Jung's full conscious intention, and only after strenuous confrontation pressuring his soul, she laments and yields. She agrees to set herself to work on behalf of humanity, but proposes that Jung build a furnace to transform the rejected matter of human existence, a vessel to work on concretizations and integrations, a container in which the human path of becoming whole might live. A new form of therapy is born, healing in the resonance with the psyche, not of the psyche. Science in consciousness. The building of this furnace, the building of this furnace, a therapeutic vessel, should become an ongoing task and treasure the psychiatrists and therapists. Um, Well, I agree with that. What I want to highlight here is Jung is talking about don't let the gods go too far. And remember in his letter to the Reverend David Cox from 1957, I believe, when he admitted that um, the personal God is your own unconscious. The collective unconscious is God with a capital G in his view. Um, and and so the problem is that certain things in effect become gods. And so for example, a corporation, a large corporation, let's say something like Apple or Amazon, and I'm not saying we're down in size, it would be less, but large corporations have a mind of their own, and they have a collective mind, and they have they are an entity that has a mind of its own, but they have no love. And uh, and so we have to remember this. And this is where Jung is having this argument with his soul. His soul wants love, and she wants Jung's blood. I mean, in effect, she's talking about being a vampire, and Jung's point is that love has to remain with humans. And so when the Supreme Court ruled that um, corporations are people, that gave corporations too much power, okay, too much power in the collective. And um, of course, in the law, uh, we we say that a corporation is a legal entity, a legal person for purposes of some things, like a corporation can make a contract and a corporate, and so, for example, I will often sign a document, such and such corporation by Donald L. Conover. Um, and so I'm taking the position of the corporation in that case. Yeah, but you can, okay, that's good as a legal concept in principle, but the problem is this one about corporations not having love. And so corporations can just roll over us if we're not aware of it. And this is why even countries can have a collective that has no love, and that's what Nazi Germany was. It was a entity of Nazi Germany that had no love, and so it fought this terrible World War II. And the Soviet Union would be another example, which it was just Russians who were um, making it happen. But when the legal entity of the USSR went away, then the humans could talk about love again. So that's why um, Ukraine and Georgia and all those uh, and the Baltic states all withdrew from uh, from Russia after that legal entity of the USSR died, fortunately, of its own weight, and um, and then these other entities reformed: Ukraine, Georgia, the Baltic states, um, Moravia or Monrovia. I don't know. Anyway, not Monrovia, but maybe it's Moravia. But there are about 10 new NATO members now because they feel more loved in NATO than they felt in the USSR. Um, yeah, Sherry's talking about Edward Said and Orientalism. It's a difficult one to choose first, but I did start with his essays on Palestine and his political essays that have been collected in multiple books, Cultural Imperialism book. And some of the evangelicals still support him. Yeah, well, of course they do. And so the question for the evangelicals is, if it doesn't involve love, it doesn't involve Christ. And so you can challenge their Christianity that way. That's a good thought. Um, yeah. Deborah says the next wave is AI, and of course AI will have no love, and so we humans have to put the love into it. Yeah, Deborah says legal personality being given to corporations has led to the making of monsters. Absolutely. The Pope and recently the Catholic bishops have spoken out about Edward Said, I guess, super suspicious how unhealthy folks in the White House become. The air and the water must be bad. Yeah, it could be. It's a small place. Um, and, and Cherie says 1979, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, what a pairing. Um, Yeah, and Deborah says it's really serious with AI because it absolutely has no heart whatsoever. And this arguably is a manifestation of ego inflation of corporations. Absolutely. Uh, and then Cherie suggests listen again to Ian McGilchrist and his conversations with many. Um, yeah, would that I had time. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, I think I'm going to call it quits for today because I'm not feeling red hot after my fall, and I want to go lie down. And I think we've raised some useful issues. Uh, Sherry says AI has no feelings and no emotions and never will, precisely. So it can be useful, but you have to use it as a tool, not expecting it to have emotions. So the next segment of this essay, which is a long one, is the meaning of the Red Book for modern psychiatry and psychotherapy. And it's about a 5-page segment. So I don't want to get into it today because it probably will take much of next week to get through it. But it's the meaning of the Red Book for modern psychiatry and psychotherapy. So it's really worth knowing. And then the next section after that, the treasure of the Red Book in our time and beyond, human love and humility. Yeah. Okay. So those are uh, human love and humility. Okay. So we're scratching at, I'll try to get through the end of this essay next week because the next section after the one about psychiatry and psychotherapy is the treasure of the Red Book in our time and beyond, human love and humility. And so that's what we have kind of um, popped up out of our reading today, which is that you know, we got to have love. You know, the Beatles said it right, and so somehow we have to get control of these powers that we've unleashed on humanity and understand that we have to have a balance. Yeah, I think I'm okay. Because I didn't fall all the way down. We have big snowdrifts, so I just lost my balance and fell into the snowdrift, and I guess I had enough momentum that I banged my head on the dumpster out there, but I didn't go down at full speed. If I had, it might well have killed me. So we're gonna have to start getting really uh, insistent that our community get those get the shoveling going. And so bye, Kathy. I guess we're saying goodbye to Kathy for the day anyway. Yeah, okay. So Kathy had told me to get checked out for concussion. I don't think I have a concussion today because I'm doing quite well. I've taken a couple of other falls in the last 12 months where I went down fully and hit my head and got a big goose egg on my forehead, as some of you may recall. And I I did have X-rays for concussion at that time, and I didn't have a concussion. So even though I got hurt pretty badly, it didn't concuss. So So I think I probably don't have. I think I have a pretty hard head. I drank a lot of milk in my youth. Uh, let's see. So so Sheree recommends, speaking of Catherine Hepburn, uh, read Kate Remembered by A. Scott uh, Berg, Berg. Uh, I was in at some place she was at late in her life. She lived not far from me and would wave when she was on her bicycle. She remembered me as she something uh, end of uh, yeah, she was a remarkable lady, Catherine Hepburn, in many ways. Uh, I was in love with her through all my youth. My anima projected on her pretty strongly at the time. Um, and she was really, really thin. And the other woman that was unnaturally thin when she was young is the other sister. Who's what's the movie? Um, White Christmas with Bing Crosby, and there's Rosemary Clooney is one of the women in the movie, and she plays the sister of this other woman who never became very famous. But oh my God, in that movie, she is so skinny. I don't know how they achieved that. They must have used some sort of girdle because I don't know how you could make a woman's midriff be as thin as that. Um, as the woman, they do a piece in the movie in White Christmas called Sisters, and the very thin woman. Oh my God, I couldn't believe that she even existed. Um, and okay, the Full House show. I don't mind getting on Zoom with you to talk about your drawing. And let's see, I think, well, here's the problem. You have to be on um, my thing. Why don't you um, send me an email and um, we'll talk about it when we can both be on Zoom because I need you on Zoom so that we can share your image. And I'm willing to do that. And as a matter of fact, you just reminded me that I I wanted to show uh, the last one of my paintings, which I think I've. Let me see if I've got the end one. Okay. So I do have my recent painting, which I actually completed this morning. And I thought I would share it with all of you. Um, and so I meant to do that. Um, and so I will do it now. Um, and so here it comes. So this is the painting, and I call this Paradise. or actually it's Paradise East. I'm expecting there's going to be a Paradise West. Now, some of you may recall that some of my colleagues thought it looked, as it was coming along, it thought it looked like a road map or a map. And so I concur with that. And let's see. Okay, I want to show you the process that I went through to uh, get this picture. Um, I'm going to stop this share for a moment. Whoops, that doesn't allow me to. I'm going to reshare because this morning I created an album for this painting, which shows the process. I figured it out, and I spent 44 hours producing this painting, which is 18 by 24 inches. And I created uh, the image, the process here, which I can go through with you quickly, just so that you can see. So this was the first day, and what I did was I dropped 3 tea bags onto my paper several times, pretty hard, and so you can see the splashes that come out from the tea bag when I did that. And then the next day, I didn't think I had enough uh, image, I guess it is the right way to say it. So I did some more tea bagging on it, and I tried to get some more wet on it so that I could get some of these places where the tea is running off. And the reason I want that is I want the parallel lines that go with the tea running across the paper. And then I started this Rocky. So I actually did Rocky twice on this painting. It took about 10 hours longer than my paintings usually take. And so you can see what I've done here. I've outlined all the T on it, not all of it in this case yet, but then here I finally have completed it. And so just looking at it, you can see why my colleagues and I thought it looked like a map because it looks like there's a lot of lakes and docks and on the lakes and that sort of thing. So that was that. And so I'll just show you how it developed further. So I kept painting, and this is, I'm showing you like one day at a time. Um, and gradually, and then, okay, this is a different piece I did just on a small piece of paper. And then, so now having done painting where I've got the color, now I've got the color, but the line differentiation that we usually have in a Rocky painting is not so apparent. So then I went back and started to, and that's the drawing of these lines around all the color boundaries. And so here I've done that. And I guess that's the last piece because that's the one I signed. And so this piece is called Paradise East. And I'm going to be giving it to one of my grandsons for his birthday in May. And I'm going to do a companion piece for another of my grandsons because I like the idea of paradise. And what occurred to me in this is that it could be used for someone with a I'm going to stop the share for a moment. It can be used for someone who has um, uh, writer's block, where you just stare at the piece and then you start imagining the people that live in those different areas of paradise. And it could be paradise in the physical world, or it could be paradise in heaven, and where you go, your spirit goes after your death. Um, and and so it occurred to me that, somebody who's having writer's block, rather than using alcohol or drugs as a way to get into your unconscious, you can just use this painting or a painting like this, all these paintings that I'm doing, because it will stimulate your unconscious, and you will see in it uh, what you're projecting from your own unconscious, not what I saw when I was doing the painting. You could never do that, but you but just by looking at these paintings, it will tend to stimulate your unconscious. That's the thought. And and I think that I'm right about this. And so I'm going to start offering these things as a cure to writer's block, actually. Uh, let's see what. The sure he says, I always chose Kate, uh, Katharine Hepburn over Meryl Streep, and she did not like her or Woody Allen's movies. She and I agree on many, and a few not. Um, and so Sheree says, this is different. Yeah, it is different. Uh, so Deborah says, okay, so fine outlines on the T and the spots. Yeah, and it does look a bit like a map, and stronger color. It's very good because you will never get bored looking at it. The sign of a good painting. Yeah, I mean, you can look at this painting for a lifetime and not see everything in it. And that's my point, that my paintings are alive. And and so I'm pleased by that. And I'll put it back up one more time, so that you can have you can maybe catch a screenshot for yourself if you want. You're welcome to do that. And then you can study it yourself and decide what you like and what you don't like about it. Um, but there are lots of characters um, in this painting. As you probably know, you see lots of uh, animals and creatures. It's got at least two elephants in it, among other things. Uh, and Deborah says it's a sign that it is not forced out by the ego. Yeah, it's definitely not forced out by the ego. This is definitely a way of communicating with my unconscious that I discovered through my colleague, Colleen Kibert, who's our 93-year-old national treasure. And Colleen taught me how to do this technique. And I just love it because I find that I can do this as a meditation technique. And I've never been very successful at just crossing my legs and meditating the way most meditators do. But by doing this, working on these paintings in the morning, it provides a very good meditation technique for me, which um, I find I need in my very challenging school. Uh, and so Sherry is okay. So Full House show says I like the lower right part. The lower right part represents wisdom and the tools that you have to achieve your uh, purpose, your mission. And Deborah says it's a fine thing to do later in life because it's fully integrating the self. Yeah, I wonder whether young people would even be able to do it. I know that some of my students have commented that it has a lot of close work in it, which it surely does. Um, Full House show, if you have Colleen's book, um, this technique is actually covered in 17, chapter 17 of Colleen's book. Um, and for those of you who don't know about that book, it's called Art and Spirit by Colleen Kibert. And it's actually quite a sumptuous book. It's just beautiful. And so I urge you to get a copy of it. You won't regret it. Colleen has been studying the creative process for um, 50 years at least, maybe more, 60 years. And and so for doodling uh, and that sort of thing, you want chapters 11 through 13. And then this technique, which I'm using, which I've modified because in in the work of Mary Fidelis, who taught Colleen how to do this, and Emil Nolde before her, they both were doing this outlining. Um, they were sort of pushing an outline into something that you can recognize. And if you do that, you can do that. You can say, okay, this is what my psyche was trying to get me to paint. And here's a real thing that you can recognize, like a house or people dancing or something like that. Um, that's what Nolde did. And I can't say about Mary Fidelis because I've never seen any of her work directly. I've seen her writing. She's done a number of very interesting children's books, which I managed to get three different ones recently through used books um, on Amazon. One of them is The Juggler of Notre Dame, which is a favorite story of mine. Um, but what happened in my paintings now, which is a sort of a step beyond where they've taught, is well, I took from Penelope Ryder the idea of uh, tea bags and tea. Uh, and I saw a very interesting technique today, which was using soap bubbles, and you take um, you put some paint on a saran wrap or something like that, and then you make a bunch of soap bubbles by using dish liquid. Put a little liquid in a glass and then blow into it through a straw, and it will create a bubbling effect, a foaming effect. And once you have a lot of bubbles, you put that on your medium, your what you're painting on, and then you put the saran wrap with just loose paint on it and squeeze it down on it, and it creates a very, very interesting effect, which I found on um, Instagram today. So anyway, yeah. Uh, so I think you can get Colleen's book in Europe. Deborah, I'm not sure if you can get it all the way to Australia, uh, but if needs be, I can always send it to you. Colleen has entrusted me with some books to give people in appropriate situations. Uh, So Deborah says it's very satisfying for you because you have navigated the most masculine of activities with the military, intellectual, with law studies and cultural language. That's a lot, plus everything, plus all my travels and living abroad for about 10 years of my life. Um, and there is a culminating process through art meditation. Yeah, I agree. Uh, and so that's why I'm showing folks this, because I do think um, it's a way to get in touch with your unconscious and to have your unconscious tell you what to put, and then you can interpret what it was saying, but you it just tells you it's whatever you think of while you're doing this process. In other words, whatever you're doing when you're doing this rocky stuff that I do, um, things will come to mind, and those things are messages from your unconscious that you need to pay attention to. It's very important, and that's why uh, it's soothing and helpful from a mental health point of view, I think. Um, so anyway, okay, friends, I'm gonna shove off, but thank you for listening today. I enjoyed speaking, and I always enjoy it when I'm speaking to myself. But I need you to push me along, and it would be great if somebody wants to join. Um, and directly discuss with me. That helps and makes a fuller session when we do that. So